Hello and welcome to the Cynic Weekly. It's Thursday. It's the 4th of December 2025. I'm your host, Christopher Gallagher, coming to you from quite a rain-soaked Cambuslang, but our hearts and minds are not rain-soaked. We're quite bright. We're quite happy. We're also still very, very annoyed at Celtic for a variety of different reasons. But there's, from a footballing perspective, there's lots to be excited about. I've got a panel for you. An international feel, coming to you all the way from Bamberg in Germany. It's Graeme Mackay. Hello, Graeme. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. My heart is not rain-filled, but it's snowy here, so I've got a bit of an iced heart, like yon Queen from Snow White.
Great start. You've taken a touch of the ball and you've rattled it right back. Lovely stuff. We're also joined by our very good friend Scott Fleming in Liverpool. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Aye, all right. I've had a bit of a hectic week. I was up in Glasgow and I was down in Cardiff, and now I'm back down here, and I've got to work night out later on in a couple of hours. So, but thankfully nothing has been happening at Celtic, nothing at all. So we'll have a relaxed, quiet chat.
Yeah, just moving forward, we're not really looking for the personal stuff, okay? So what you got to yeah, I mean, just
follow me on Bebo. Get it all on.
Bebo, Jesus Christ. It's a pleasure to see you both. We do have kind of news, obviously, to kind of touch on. So I'll just give a rundown of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the appointment of Wilfried Nancy as Celtic manager. We're going to talk about Martin O'Neill and his term as interim manager. What a joy it was. We'll look over the game yesterday, the defeat of Dundee. That'll lead into looking at some of the SPFL results that affect Celtic's place in the table. There's one bit of news, and we can talk about that. We'll also have a look at the Green Brigade, the collective, the support in general, and some stuff that came out from the club that affects all supporters. We'll have a touch on that. And then we'll finish by looking at the Hearts game, because, monumental game indeed. But it's important that we start with the breaking news. Well, it's not breaking now, but it was certainly breaking yesterday before the game, that Wilfried Nancy is the new Celtic manager. He signed a 2.5-year deal coming in December. It's never happened before. We've always had new managers, with the exception, I think, Lou McCarry, maybe. New managers coming in at the start of a season to get their kind of feet under the table. But let's start with Graeme Mackay. Graeme, your thoughts on Wilfried Nancy as manager, the timing, just your thoughts on the guy as a whole?
I mean, I think it's more than one way to look at this. The timing is mental. The fact that we went through the whole in November without a permanent manager is just weird. Taking 5 weeks off of the season. I put a thing on Blue Sky the other day essentially saying that we've taken a ninth of the season and gone managerless through it, and it worked out well for us. It could have gone badly. It could have gone really badly if some balls had bounced the other way, or if the other teams weren't on fire round about us. The club will act as if this was all part of the plan. We just wanted to get the right man across the line. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't know what the hell was going on in the background, but the fact that Wilfried Nancy has been someone that's been spoken about for weeks, and we've just kind of gone in a kind of slow way to get him. Obviously, there are things behind the scenes that we don't know about. There's allegations that we're waiting to December because it would bring down the compensation fee. Don't know if that's true. It seems completely like Celtic to do that kind of thing, so I'm gonna believe it. But yeah, away from that side of things, is someone that I'm very excited about. I'd read a lot about him, obviously listened to a lot of people talk about him, including Matt on the podcast a while back. And the other day I just started to watch videos of him, and I was kind of surprised at how French he was, which seems like something I should have been prepared for. But I think thinking that he'd been in North America for so long, I didn't expect him to be so French. Yeah. But yeah, that's... I don't know if you guys have seen the little video of him going into Lennoxtown and having the most awkward, kind of small talk with James Forrest, and I love that kind of stuff, man. Usually this is happening in May or June. You're getting all of these new things, but yeah, I'm guessing, I guess that just having that excitement mid-season is also quite fun. It's just a bit odd, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott Fleming, talk us through your thoughts on Wilfried Nancy.
Yeah, the videos that have just gone out are really interesting, really awkward, as Graeme says. Also kind of interesting that just how front and centre Michael Nicholson is in all of it.
Yep.
Weekend at Bernie's, but it's Michael Nicholson.
Yeah. I think the timing is obviously not ideal, to say the least. The fact that it's dragged on for so long, and he's taken over heading into such a sort of daunting run of fixtures, especially the next three. You wonder if there has been any work permit issues or whatever, but with the state of the board at the moment, your assumption is that it's just good old-fashioned incompetence, like we saw in the summer transfer window. So it's not ideal from that point of view, but at the same time, I think it is really exciting. He wasn't necessarily my first choice way back when the process began. I think I would have took Knutson or someone like that if I was offered them at that point. But as soon as it became clear that he was first choice and basically the only remaining candidate in the process, I started to do a bit more research, watch videos, listen to podcasts and all that. And you can't help but get excited at that point, just in terms of what he's achieved at clubs that didn't necessarily have the right to go and achieve those things. The relationships he's managed to build up with squads and fan bases, the way that he talks to the media, and of course the football that he plays, which seems to be a very good fit for us, basically. And I found it quite interesting, the clip. I think it was Hamish Carton put it on X the other day, the one where he's really taken umbrage with the idea that his team or him as a person would ever be an underdog. So he seems to have that really sort of defiant mindset, and I think, as much as we're all going, oh, it's really not ideal, his first three games are Hearts, Roma, and a cup final, I think he'll be looking at that and going, if I can win all three of these, like, it's basically the best start a manager's ever had at Celtic. And like, I think he's already got a lot of people on side, just because we have had that long gestation process of 5-6 weeks, whatever it is, where we basically knew he was coming in. It's given everyone time to do the homework. But I think, especially if he gets those three results, almost regardless of what the performances are like, then that would just set him on his way in a really major fashion. So I think when I had my reservations at first, but I've really grown to like the idea of it. And I remember I wrote an article sort of towards when I think I wrote it for Cynic, actually, just after Aaron's left and Rodgers came back.
Yeah,
and it was about the idea that, you know, we are such an emotional fan base and we fall in love with players and managers, and then, you know, as soon as they go, you feel sort of crestfallen. And I was writing in that article that maybe it's good that we'll have someone like Rodgers who we've already got this checkered past with, and we won't, you know, fall head over heels with him and all that. And I now just realise that that's total bullshit, because we need that. You know, you ask yourself, why the first half of last season we were achieving so many things and breaking new ground in Europe and all that, why didn't it feel as exciting or as special as the peak of the Ange era? And I think it's because we do need a manager who's charismatic, we do need a manager ultimately who's likeable and who plays a certain type of football, and who's going to take us sort of on a journey. That, to people out with the Celtic bubble, that might sound like sort of Celtic exceptionalism, it might sound a bit sort of cheesy or whatever, but I really think that's true. You look at a lot of the best managers we've ever had, like O'Neill and Burns and all that, and they're all massive personalities, and you invest in them. And I think, despite all the other problems and issues at the club, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I think that is something really sort of exciting that we can get our teeth into over the next few months. Absolutely.
And I think it's important to, you know, highlight that personality thing, you know, talking about like Tommy Burns and Martin O'Neill and, you know, these guys. It's so important, I think, for our support to connect, as you say. Yeah. look, see, we on the Cynic.co, we've got a whole Celtic subscription, podcast subscription service. If you go to the Cynic.co, or you search for the Cynic on Patreon, we've already covered Wilfried Nancy in quite excellent detail. We had a Columbus Crew fan on, our good friend Matt Rain, that our good friend Graeme was on with him and discussed he's a Celtic fan, but also he's a Columbus Crew fan, so you get that both sides perspective. And also we had the tactics of Wilfried Nancy, which is an in-depth, detailed look at how it's about him as a man, but it's also about his philosophy in football. It's very in-depth, it's very interesting. So if you go to the Cynic.co, we also covered all the Hibs stuff as well. We're not going to touch on the Hibs stuff, but you can check all out reactions to every game, lots of content. Get involved. I think that I'm going to read out the quotes. That was quite odd there. I said, I think that in a weird way, like a robot. So this is what Nancy said when he was announced yesterday. I'm so happy to be named Celtic manager. It's a massive honour for myself and my family. Before I say anything, I also want to do one thing. I want to thank the great Martin O'Neill and Sean Moloney for all they've done in recent weeks with the team. The job they have done has been fantastic. These guys have given so much to the club across so many years, and I know our fans, like me, all recognise the brilliant job they've done, blah, 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 blah. Now it's up to me to carry on the great work and carry our great club forward, and I can't wait to get going and become part of such a brilliant institution. Celtic is one of the world's proper football clubs. Real atmosphere and heart and soul. Jinky said Celtic is one of the world's proper football clubs. That sounds like something Danny Dyer would say. Do you know what I mean?
Proper.
It's a proper football club. I know the history, I know the values. Yeah, just all the kind of usual stuff from Nancy there. What are you excited about, Graeme, and what are you slightly concerned about? Because no managerial appointment, no matter who it is without certain, issues or problems, and so we'll talk through his positive aspects of how he plays football and his philosophy, but I want to hear about that from what you're looking forward to, but also give us a little bit of your fears and your concerns that hopefully won't come to pass.
There was a podcast I was listening to recently with Nicky Bandini, and she was talking about Juventus and Napoli and Napoli after Conte, because Conte is doing his usual and looking as if he wants to spit the dummy. And one of the people they were talking about going in was Thiago Motta. And Nicky Bandini just worried that Thiago Motta's tactics would be so different from what the players at Napoli are used to under Conte, that she thinks someone like Thiago Motta would be good to bring in the summer as opposed to during the middle of the season. If people ask me what I'm worried about the most when it comes to Nancy, it's that for Celtic. I think Nancy will work as a football manager in Britain. I think his tactics will work at Celtic. The only thing that worries me is that we are throwing him into the trenches here, and there's so many games between now and January, so many games between now and getting players back fit and getting players in transfers, that I worry that there's going to be a narrative formed against him before he gets properly started. And I was kind of trying to balance out over these last 8 games, and from my love of Martin O'Neill and just not wanting anything bad to happen to Martin O'Neill, not wanting any bad results. I was so happy to have that kind of bookend with the Feyenoord result. And then at the same time, you think to yourself, okay, no, the Martin O'Neill doing well is just going to be so much more pressure on Nancy, because as soon as something bad happens, people in the Celtic support are going to say we should have kept Martin O'Neill. Yeah. And it was never realistic. He's 73 years old. Becoming Celtic manager full-time was never realistic. So I think we just need to make sure that we don't focus too much on that when it comes to Nancy. We need to go into this expecting it not to be completely smooth sailing. There are going to be bumps. I've got a feeling he's going to be, I don't know, I think he's going to be someone that's going to transition smoother than I kind of feared there. And I hope that's the case. And one of the things we're going to come up to later on is the idea of, do we go full Nancy straight away? And I think we do. Not to give a spoiler to that part of the conversation, but I think Nancy needs to do his 100% taking of the team from the very first whistle at training this morning. And that's the kind of thing that I'm fearing, but also I'm looking forward to the new tactics. I'm looking forward to the new vision. obviously being a Bundesliga watcher over the last few years, one of the most interesting and exciting tactical performances was Xavi Alonso at Leverkusen, playing a very similar formation to the one that Nancy plays. And I'm just excited to see that happening at Celtic, exciting to see something different. The same kind of excitement as when Ange came in and we were getting all these stories about his tactics and the way that he plays, etc., etc. So it's basically what I'm excited about and what I'm worried about are two sides of the same coin. I'm just hoping it lands on the heads for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What about yourself, Scott? Is there anything that kind of instantly comes out positively and potential just a worry?
Yeah, similar to Graeme, but it's sort of positive and negative at the same time. I went back and looked at some of Columbus Crew's results from last season, which seems to have been the least successful season he had at the club by miles. But there's a couple of games in particular that really stood out. There's one where they were playing Atlanta and they were 5-0 up at half time and it ended 5-4. And there's another one where they were 2-0 down after 5 minutes and they came back and won 4-2. Like, I think there's going to be an element of chaos to this, which is going to be quite fun when it goes our way, but when it doesn't, it's going to be interesting to see the way people react to that, because they have been conditioned by this run of pretty much perfect form under O'Neill and Maloney, even though the performances haven't always been perfect by any means. But yeah, that's the side of it that excites me. And I would also say we saw a little bit of this under O'Neill, but I think we'll see a lot more of it under Nancy, is just the idea of finding those sort of rough gems that are hidden away in the depths of the squad, polishing them up and just saying, I think I can get something slightly different out of you by giving you a game, by trying you in this different position. I think we're going to see a lot of that, and obviously we're all hoping that there's going to be a lot of transfer activity in January, but between now and then, if he is going to go full Nancy, if it is going to be the 3-4-2-1, then he's going to have to try some mad shit. He's undoubtedly, even if we do strike it lucky and some of the injured players come back sooner than is anticipated, we are going to have to throw some square pegs and round holes. We're maybe going to have to try some midfielders in the back three and find some sort of solution with the wing back roles as well, because there's no obvious solutions there. How much of the wingers are going to naturally adapt to that slightly inverted number 10 role, I'm not too sure either. Also, just none of the wingers are really in form at the moment, so that's another challenge for him. But yeah, that's probably the part of it that just fresh eyes on that squad and an open mind, and to see what he can do there. That's one part of it that really jumps out to me is quite intriguing. Yeah,
as I say, the podcast we did, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but Christian talks about how he had instant success, instant improvement at not only Columbus Crew but Montreal. He took them, he improved all metrics when he came in. So I like that. There was instant kind of change, instant improvement. Just a couple of other points I took from the podcast. I took some notes so I could say some stuff, give you a bit of a flavour for it. Plays a 3-4-3 as we're aware, constant rotations and overloads, uses his wide centre backs as playmakers to progress the ball, plays a double pivot to stay calm and press resistant. Pressing is not constant, it's trigger based. So when this happens, that's when you press. It's not a constant press, it's pressing on the ideas of triggers. Football.
Sorry to jump in, that was an interesting thing that Matt Foveringham said about the final game, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, football's proactive, fluid and technically demanding. That's one of the things that might be a bit of an issue, how much he's going to expect of his players. Graeme, the other funny thing is, what Scott was saying there about some games being 5-0 ahead, then it finishing, 5-4, or being 2-0 down and it finishing 4-2. We heard a lot of this about Postecoglou. Remember, it was like, it's either going to be you'll either win 5-4 or you'll lose 5-4. There'll be lots of goals. And it didn't quite bear out like that. And obviously that's to do with the environment at Celtic and the quality of difference of players and such like that, which I know has dropped off slightly. But these are all, I don't want to compare it in any way to Postecoglou because it's lazy, it's unfair, and it doesn't make sense. But just in terms of fresh ideas, fresh approach, that's where you could say it's similar to Postecoglou.
Yeah. Remember, we were told that we were going to concede like 5 goals a season because Joe Hart was going to get lobbed from the halfway line, and that didn't happen once.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because you're trying to see how these managers are going to perform as a Celtic manager, and you've got no basis for it because you're looking at these teams, and I think as you, Christian, well said on the Tactics podcast, you're comparing him managing a team that is either in kind of broad comparison with the teams around him or slightly shitter than the teams around him, and he's using one of these teams to dominate the league. And it's kind of the point I was making on a pod recently about Vincent Kompany and how when Vincent Kompany went up to the Premiership with Burnley and just looked completely out of his depth, but was able to then go to Bayern and use his ability with better players to get back onto the kind of winning streak that he had with Burnley in the Championship. So we're trying to make comparisons here, but the comparisons that we're making we don't really have all the information that we need. But what I would say is if you can get someone who can take a team like Columbus Crew, who were lower bottom half of all the teams in the MLS, if you can take him and you can get him to like punch above his weight, but then when he gets up to that point and becomes one of the best teams in the league, can still have these rotations that open up gaps and are able to kind of find a way past low blocks, then essentially you've got a manager that can do both sides of the game. And I think that was one of the things I wanted to hear the most when we were speaking to Matt Ryan was, can he go into European games and play against these fancier oppositions, in Columbus's case it was the Mexican teams, and shut up shop and actually perform against a team that is better than them, and in the league also perform against teams that are worse than them. That's what we need as a Celtic manager, because we want to be able to dominate teams in domestically, but we want to not be embarrassed when we go into European football. From that point of view, what we've heard about Nancy, it just excites me so much because we need to have both sides of the game.
Absolutely. Just looking at Anthony Joseph put out a tweet, that obviously Nancy's the manager, but he says the MLS side's fitness coach Jules Guggen and video performance coach Maxime Chollier will also be moving to the Scottish Champions. So fitness coach, video performance coach Scott, nothing's really been confirmed in terms of, you mentioned Mark Fotheringham, who I think there's an article going around where he comes across fantastically well.
Yeah.
I think obviously people have kind of taken to him quite a bit. Sean Maloney's, I think, kind of, I don't know, I kind of feel like Sean Maloney, since he's been part of this management team, the support have fallen back in love with him in a weird wee way. What's your kind of thoughts on who you think will be the Scottish part of Nancy's crew?
Well, yeah, it's good to see he's getting to bring some people with him, I suppose, for starters, just because when Ange came in, it was basically a one-man band, wasn't it? And they just left Strachan and Kennedy and everyone else in situ. Here he does seem to have a bit more latitude to bring in his guys, but we're not necessarily, if it's fitness coaches and video analysts and stuff, it doesn't sound like they're necessarily going to be what we would consider like a natural number 2, number 3, sort of sat next to him on the bench type of guys. So it does seem like there's scope to keep at least one of these guys, and I would quite like the idea of that being Maloney. It is a dangerous one, like all of these things, like Martin O'Neill, and it's when you bring in someone who you already love in a role where you're judged very harshly on winning or losing, the sort of the bottom line of results, then I always think this is why we'll probably talk about it in a minute when we look back at the job the interim management team did, but I always think it's really dangerous emotionally because it sort of clouds your perception of it. But I think Maloney is proved with the job that he's done in that short space of time that he does have a big contribution to make, and he might be better making it in that sort of slightly withdrawn role rather than being a number one as a manager, where he obviously struggled with Wigan and Hibs. But like, even just like when you look at last night's performance, or how much better we are, maybe not in some of the away games, but how much better we've been in the recent home games, just in terms of the fluidity and the positional rotation and all that. I think it's probably fair to attribute that to people like Maloney rather than O'Neill. So yeah, I'd certainly like to see him stay on in some capacity.
Graeme?
Yeah, I just had a text message from Paul Carlin, and he's fined you 10 Cynic bucks for your pronunciation of the backroom stuff coming in. So just to let you know. But
I know.
My actual point is that I was kind of considering this as a bit of a sea change. Is something changing at the club? And then when you sent us a rundown and you wanted to speak about the new backroom staff, I gave them a quick Google. And it looks as if we've just basically replaced the guys that all left with Brendan Rodgers. I don't think this is a sea change or anything like that. The assistant manager's coming in to replace Kennedy. You've got the fitness guy coming in to replace Driscoll. You've got the video guy probably coming in to replace Jack. I think this is just a case of we had holes to fill, and we probably said to Nancy, do you know anyone that can fulfill these positions? And he said, I've got a few people to come over. So I think if Kennedy, etc., had all remained after Rodgers left, I don't think Nancy would be bringing anyone with him. That might just be my cynical nature. And also, Sean Maloney is fine to stay as long as he apologised for the free kick.
Against Seville?
Yep.
Just stand, head bowed. I'm sorry I took that free kick in the last minute of... Yeah, agreed. Excellent point, Graeme. I'm fully behind
Thank
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, like this, we'll talk about how badly run the club is. We had Anthony Joseph on Saturday, and we were talking to him, and he was kind of alluding to the fact that there's going to be announcements of potential changes, a bit of a shake-up. And yet, is this a case of there's going to be an actual shake-up, or is this a case of they're just going to change some people's job titles to seem like it's a shake-up? And that's how I feel. Is the transfer system of how we get a player in the door or a player out the door, is that going to be more easier to get through, or is it going to come and fall at the exact same issues that it did in the last 5 windows? Is it a case of that pipeline is cleared because there's a structure and we understand how it's going to work, or is there not going to be any change? Michael Nicholson is absolutely useless. He's a useless CEO. He doesn't do his job right. It's imperative that he is relieved of his duties. It's imperative that there is massive structural change at the club, and with that not happening, that's my concerns with Wilfried Nancy being in, is that he's going to be firefighting all over the place. He was announced as the football manager as opposed to, I've just looked back and it's like, they kind of flip between Celtic manager and football manager. It's all quite odd. I guess it's probably just how they use the language. But then if you look at how they announced him on the stock market, they got his name wrong
5 times.
World class in everything we do, Scott. World class. Martin O'Neill. Let's move on. We'll come back. We'll be covering non-save for the foreseeable. So on
until he moves to Wolves in a year and a half.
Fuck.
Well, that means he's been successful here, Graeme. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So
okay.
Rein it in. Okay. Martin O'Neill. Yesterday, it was a very emotional post-match with Martin O'Neill. Scott, how do you think he's handled it? How have you enjoyed it? And what's your overall thoughts in his second spell?
I'm probably a little bit different to most people in terms of like, now it's over, I'm just relieved. I feel that we've defused a bomb almost, because I was really wary of disappointment for the reasons I touched on earlier. I just think his legacy, especially for our generation, I know he's repeatedly said he doesn't care about his legacy, but we do.
Yeah.
And I really, really did not want to do anything that ran the risk of tarnishing that. And the longer the caretaker spell went on, the more it did feel a little bit dangerous, especially when you look at the St Mirren performance, for example. I think we were all sort of saying the same thing at that point, which is whatever magic wand he waved, its effects have clearly worn off. But then we go and produce the Feyenoord performance, which is as big a night as we've had in Europe for a long time. So yeah, I'm just really relieved that I know there's a lot of chat out there from people of we should have just left him in charge till after the cup final. We should have just left him in charge till the end of the season. I think that's mental for two reasons. One of them is the one that Kieran explained quite well on the agenda on Monday, which is this probably isn't sustainable when you look at the underlying data and the numbers. We have rode our luck a bit. The second one is just that we need to appreciate we've been quite, this, as Graeme said earlier on, it could have gone a lot differently. The fact that we've got through to it with all the key figures' reputations intact and our relationships with them strengthened, if anything, is to me a huge relief, because I don't think it was inevitable. And there have been a few dodgy moments along the way. I won't linger on it, but I don't think any of us were too mad about Martin O'Neill's comments about Jock Stein after the AGM, which was, let's just say it was a bit clumsy. But if you're going to give anyone the benefit of the doubt with that kind of thing, it would be him. So overall, I've really enjoyed it. It's been really sort of heartwarming and nostalgic. Just every little press conference, there's been so many kind of funny little lines. Even the stuff that the club put out last night where he's in the dressing room. And I always assume there's public Martin O'Neill and there's private Martin O'Neill. And private Martin O'Neill is much more serious and driven and stuff. You always hear those quotes from Chris Sutton of like, I used to be terrified of him and stuff. And then you watch those clips from the dressing room last night when he's doing his little speeches, and it's like, well, it just seems to be exactly the same. He's gone on about Bjorn Borg and stuff, talking to Nygren, and it was bizarre but very funny. And yeah, the whole thing has just gone about as well as I think any of us possibly could have hoped that it could. He's sort of kept us on the tracks in very simple terms by winning all the domestic games. But he's also given us two really enjoyable, really memorable days in terms of the League Cup semi-final against Rangers and that European night against Feyenoord, which were just brilliant. So yeah, I'm glad it's over in a way, but I'm still happy it happened, which sounds like a kind of shit tattoo that someone would get, but
definitely a hun. Martin O'Neill, 85.81% win rate. He's won 502 points from 583. Is he the second greatest Celtic manager of all time, Graeme? Because no one's going to usurp Jock Stein because he won the European Cup and he won 9 in a row and he was just, one of a kind. But is Martin O'Neill the second greatest ever Celtic manager?
I would say so. Like, going back to his first spell in charge, the 5 seasons, won it 3 times, lost it twice by an absolute ball hair, against a financially doped Rangers team, obviously. He, at one point as Celtic manager in that first spell, I think he was someone that could have gone down and taken over from Alex Ferguson and continued to win the league with Manchester United. Yeah. Obviously, he went down and he had a great run with Aston Villa, who were not obviously as good as they are now. But I mean, like he had them up competing for Champions League spots. He was an exceptional manager for that era. I think he was one of my favourites of all time as well, of all football managers. And just as Scott was saying about the kind of the persona that you think of Martin, he was always get some kind of little jab to take at his players, and it's talking about how like they shouldn't be doing like laps around the stadium and stuff like that. So he always has these little jabs where you think he's a bit kind of thinking about youngsters and these youngsters nowadays. But then when you see him in that video, and my favourite moment, and it's one that I can relate to working at a university and with 100 different students coming through my classes every week, where he points at Benjamin Nygren, goes to say his name, can't remember what his name
young
is.
Young man.
Like, what I tend to do is I tend to think of like stereotypical German names. The amount of times I've called this student Jürgen, for example, and there's no German students called Jürgen anymore. It's all Lucas and Max and all this. But yeah, so that was fantastic, and just seeing the little interactions. I don't know if you noticed when he hugged Yang, and he said to Yang, like, obviously there's a language barrier, but he says keep going, like he's trying to kind of almost continue to motivate them, even though he's leaving them. And they had a little moment with Maeda and Engels, and you can see that he's obviously much more caring of these players as people behind the scenes than he is in what we see in the media and stuff like that. And the comments from, like, I think Brian McManus was pointing out that Arne Engels was essentially saying that it's just been like a breath of fresh air. Everyone feels so much better around the place. And I saw Kieran mention something as well about how it just kind of signals how toxic things were under Brendan Rodgers towards the end, where Martin O'Neill comes in and does simple things in a simple way and gets the club just feeling much more better about themselves. And you forget that these are young guys coming in from all over the world. People like Arne Engels you think of as a seasoned player, but he's so young. And I think Martin O'Neill has been a perfect bridge between two eras this time around. Like, his era was in the early 2000s, but his time now has been someone who has bridged the gap between two eras and done it in such a kind of like gentle way, not disturbing anything, but just getting the players back on track. It reminds me, this is going to be a kind of niche reference, but I remember being told a while back that, when you have those heart defibrillators, it doesn't actually start your heart again. What it does is it stops your heart for a second so that you start to pump normally again. But Martin O'Neill has done that to the Celtic team. He's just reset everything, and I think the players are starting to operate normally again after a kind of weird few months of the season. Lovely stuff from both. Really nice. What I would say is, looking at Martin O'Neill was in charge for 8 games. He won 7 of them, scored 19 goals, conceded 6, beat Rangers in a cup semi-final at Hampden, won a European away game against, let's be honest, a heavyweight in European football. Doesn't matter how they were performing, still a huge club, and just gave us Celtic back. But I'm going to use. I don't want to. I just think everything he's done has just been sensational. But can I just add? Sorry to interrupt, Gall. I wanted to just add one thing. When he left that season, that 5th season, it was as close as we got to being toxic back then with the club, because we'd lost Larsson, Henri Camara had come in, the players were aging, like it didn't look great. Martin was obviously having problems with his wife's health at the time, and then we go on to have Black Sunday. Martin O'Neill was someone that never got a proper goodbye at Celtic. Like, he got a goodbye in the Hydro years later, but being at the Hydro and being at Celtic Park last night in the middle of that crowd is a totally different thing. And just seeing that last night, seeing the emotion, it was just wonderful to see him getting a proper thank you and proper goodbye from the Celtic fans.
And on that note, Graeme,
can I grab your attention just for a moment? I know this will be a very emotional time for you as you walk around this pitch, but can you sum up the last 6 weeks or so and your return to paradise?
These players have been absolutely fantastic, honestly, and that's why they are champions. That's the reason. They've been absolutely fantastic, and it's been a privilege to work with them, a real privilege to work with them, and I've had the time of my life here the last 5 or 6 weeks. Thank you.
Martin, can I ask just one final thing? What's your final message to these Celtic supporters as you go round one last time?
The Celtic supporters, they just need reminding that they are the best in the world.
Nice. It was real nice. It was good to see. Now, I just want to get serious for a second, right? That's what I'm going to say next isn't about Martin O'Neill. It's about the club and the board. The toxicity that became apparent around Brendan Rodgers and everything to do with how the season started in the transfer window That was the Celtic board. Now, Rodgers had an input in that, of course he did, right? But that was the Celtic board. The Celtic board then quickly used Martin O'Neill as a shield between them and the support. And you cannot not fall in love with Martin O'Neill again, as Graeme said. However, the way they treat their football managers in terms of, giving them new players, the way they treat the support, the way they treat people at the club, the way they treat everything, getting the stock market announcement wrong. The fact that we're going into a January window where Maida's probably going to leave. The point is, they're not going to have a Martin O'Neill next time, and that's the point. This board haven't changed. This board are I personally am divorcing myself. I'm divorcing Nancy as a Celtic manager from the Celtic board because I really like him. I'm excited about him. But this board have in them to fuck this up. And we can't forget that. And that's why I still think we need to rail against them. That's why I was delighted to see the Green Brigade at Celtic Park yesterday with their signs. We need to keep that up as a collective, as a Celtic collective. We need to continue the pressure on them because this can all happen again. And you know what? There's a possibility it might. Sorry to get all annoying, but that's just the way it is, and we need to keep sight of that, and we'll keep reminding everyone of that. What did you make of the game? The game itself, Scott, it was an odd one to get. We did a reaction to it, and it was quite an odd one because it's the end of the Martin O'Neill era. Wilfried's in straight away, so it's kind of like, how do you look at that? Can you take anything away from it?
Yeah, it was a strange one. I thought we actually played really well first half, even though we're only 1-0 up at half time against a really dog shit Dundee team. I really liked the energy. I really liked how hard we were working to win back the ball and the positional rotations and all of that. It's a lovely goal that we score.
Yeah.
Dyson coming back on with it's like a kind of Rocky makeup. It was ridiculous that he even came back on the pitch with an eye that bad, but it says a lot about his character. I thought Hatate was probably his best performance I've seen in a long time. He just seemed to be enjoying himself so much, which you don't always see in terms of I don't want to return to some of the body language over analysis we've had with Hatate over the years, but I thought he was really enjoying himself last night, and it was quite evident. And then second half, it just tails off. They make a couple of changes and they start pressing us a bit higher. We start looking a lot nervier. I never really truly believed we were going to concede, but there is a few dicey moments. I thought Scales was as bad as he's been for a long time.
Yeah.
And we just, once the Hatate shot gets panned around the post, we don't really look like scoring again from that point onwards. And you're just reminded of, as good a job as O'Neill and Maloney and co have done, you're just reminded of how hamstrung they are, because I think they would have wanted to make attacking substitutions much earlier, rather than, I think they left it till about 80 minutes, but they clearly just don't have any confidence on the options on the bench. And then you've got guys like Tanecki coming on, and much like a lot of his performances recently, he just doesn't look quite right. He's missing that little sort of spring in his step and confidence. So it was a reminder, and possibly even a timely reminder, in terms of the conversation we had earlier about these results under O'Neill sort of harshly heightening the expectations on Nancy and stuff. I think in a weird way, most important thing was getting the 3 points last night, putting another 2 points into Rangers, drawing level with Hearts. But in a weird way, it might be good in the long run that second half was as much of a slog as it was, because it reminded us that this is still a deeply flawed football team with a certain amount of vulnerability that isn't going to go away overnight, no matter what the new manager brings to the table.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Graeme, to kind of put a positive spin on it, was there anything that you saw that you think Nancy will look at and say, "Oh, I'll have a bit of that"?
I think he'll be rubbing his hands with Hatate. I mean, just watching Hatate the last few games, it's exactly the kind of player you'd want to be coming in to manage. I mean, Maeda as well. If I was him after that head knock, I would have been screaming at TV to get Maeda off the park, because I want to be able to use him in the next few weeks, and they looked absolutely fucked. But no, I mean, I thought Sriracha again before the injury, I thought he was looking really decent. I thought Colby Donovan came onto a game again. Yang continued his. With Yang, it's almost like a baby bird. You don't want to like crush him. It's kind of steady the last few games, but you don't want to go too high too quickly with him. Again, McGregor was fine. So I think, there's not much point me saying much more about Scales, but I agree with what Scott said about him. And overall, I feel as if it was just one of those games that you wanted to get by. But as Scott said, I think us winning 1-0 with a bit of a flighty performance is going to be better in the long run for Wilfried Nancy than us winning 7-0 last night. If we'd battered them 7-0, then I think it would have been a lot more tricky for Nancy over the next few weeks. But I think it was the best of both worlds. Get the results, get the 3 point, and still show that we need worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a reaction afterwards, reacted to Nancy being announced as well. So, as I say, the cynic.co, you can check it out. What I would say on the performance is that goal scoring, I think that's the issue. Obviously, Dyson Maeda, he's really, really brave with a header. But I just worry about if he's not available. Johnny Kenny hasn't been involved the last couple of weeks. Shin Yamada might get a chance under maybe we come in, we have a whole fresh outlook. Shin Yamada gets a chance. It's just Iheanacho might be back, and that leads me into a bit of news. So there's a rule change by FIFA means that Tenekte, Balikwisha and Iheanacho will all be available. Now they might not all get called up. I don't know if I think Iheanacho's been in the provisional squad for Nigeria, but whether he's in the full squad, it's the same with all three of them. But you'd imagine that Tenekte and Balikwisha will definitely get called up, but they're available for the cup final against St Mirren. But having looked at that, Balikwisha hasn't been involved at all, really. Tenekte has dropped off a little bit, and Iheanacho hasn't been available the last couple of weeks. So if they weren't available, it's kind of like, I don't know, you want them available, Graeme, but it just obviously will have a manager who will be assessing everyone. So it's almost like, day one again for everyone.
Mm-hmm. As things stand, they're probably not going to be in a team that I would put together to start on Sunday, but the more options the better, because Nancy will come in here and he might see something from these three players in training that fits exactly the kind of system that he wants to play. It's hard to even comment on Iheanacho because he was just starting to get warmed up and firing when the injury happened. And it's been a bit of an odd one because he was back in a squad a couple of weeks ago. I think, was it for Feyenoord he was back in the squad, and then he's just been dropped back out again. So it's kind of confusing as to what actually his status is. I think with the team in general, Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney just found an 11 that was going to get them to the games, get them through these 8 games, and they just went with it. The comments in Balikwisha that he spoke about in the agenda that Martin O'Neill said, hopefully the next guy will find something for him. I think that's basically been the same for everyone that's not getting in the first 11. Johnny Kenny, I was quite surprised by how he started under Martin O'Neill, got some goals, and then he's just not been really given any more minutes. And I think it is because Martin O'Neill was just thinking to himself, I need to get these 3 points. He spoke time and again about how winning was the most important thing, and I just think he wasn't wanting to gamble on that. That said, last night with that injury to Maeda, I was surprised that no one came on off the bench. So overall, I think it's good to have the more options the better for Nancy to kind of start to build his team with. But that said, I can't see any of the 3 of these making too much of a difference being available for the final.
Scott, it was an evening of hilarity. With some terrific results. Just looking at, I don't know why I'm doing that. It's not even that funny. Hearts obviously have been on a really poor run, but they again dropped points. They conceded in the 90th minute. So they've not won so the last 4 games have been 3 draws and a defeat. Obviously we are 1, 2, 3, 5 wins in a row. Hearts obviously on Sunday, and we'll come to talk about that, but their bottle has been, there's no other way to put it, their bottle has fucking crashed.
Yeah, who would have thought it could go so disastrously wrong, playing 4-4-2 with McInnes as your manager? Yeah, You can sort of I think they've had a few injuries recently, haven't they? Shankland was out for a week or two, and they missed Halkett, and I don't think it's a big enough squad where they wouldn't miss players like that. So you can sort of understand and maybe forgive to an extent their results. Narrow 1-0 loss away to Aberdeen, 0-0 away to Motherwell, and all that. But last night was the first one where you just think, okay, you're kind of shite, aren't you? Like, it's a Kelly side that have been in woeful form recently, and they go there and draw one each, and by the sounds of it, thoroughly deserved their point.
Yeah.
So obviously there's still a certain amount of nerves about Sunday, just because it's a one-off game. We don't know what Nancy is going to do. They could sort of pick themselves up for that and treat it as a bit of a cup final. But I think, without wanting to tempt fate too much, I think we can already see that it's a team that's very unlikely to last the distance in terms of any title race.
We've got 32 points. Hearts have got 32 points as well. We've got a game in hand, of course. Rangers drew 2 each with Dundee United. Graeme, did you see the penalty in the 98th billionth minute?
98th minute after 6 minutes of injury time. I didn't see it, but I listened to BBC Sports Sound today, which is unusual for me. And even like the ex-Rangers players were saying it's pretty soft. So I'm guessing it wasn't. It was one of those. But
well, good let him down let himself down as a supposed good Celtic man by saying it was a penalty and the Dundee United one wasn't. And if you've seen that, that's like even clearer. Like,
it was supposed to be a handball that was in comparison to Liam Scales' handball the other day. So again,
yeah, I think it's the same centre back who done the Levy one a couple of weeks ago, which was another stoneballer.
Aye. It's I mean, maybe Goodwin and Scales will just try to be nice so that they can pull the rug from under people's feet towards the end of the season. I don't know. But yeah, it sounds as if it was a really soft one, but I think Rangers ended up with an XG of like 4 point something last night, which is absolutely fantastic. You love to see it. And while I'm on the idea of XG and Sports Sound, they are still mocking people. Like, I think Tom English was using XG and others were mocking him for it. It's nearly 2026. People need to grow the fuck up about XG, man. It's just a stat. People can use it if they want. You don't mock people for using it on a football show. It's bizarre.
But what annoys me about it is it's genuinely the most useful stat there is. It's genuinely the most, because you can talk about, we always used to laugh like the Craig Brown sketch on Only an Excuse where he's going, but we get more corners than them and all that. Like, you can get loads of corners and you can get loads of possession and all those things and still be playing shite. XG, you can't really get like a 4 XG or something without playing well, can you?
No, because you're creating chances. Oh, it is creating chances. It's,
yeah.
I don't know, it's bizarre, but yeah.
See, to be honest, see if Tom English went on like a positive, discussion about me, where he was like, Chris Gallagher, he's a really good podcaster, and blah blah blah. I'd be like, I'm a fuck. Shut up.
How can someone who literally has an Irish mother be so bad at Irish?
I thought that wasn't bad. I thought that wasn't bad.
You've done worse.
The thing about Brendan Rodgers is that he was. That's good. Is it? Nah. But my point is,
I did enjoy the Irish mother content on the reaction. That was my favourite part.
Yep, thecynic.co for all your Irish mother updates. But what I would say is anything that Tom English agrees with, I instantly don't. So XG, I don't think is a thing now. But no, so we're 9 points ahead of Rangers. Same games, they've drawn the last 2 games. They should have lost that game last night. But what Martin O'Neill's done is just sensational, considering we were 8 points behind after that defeat to Hearts. He's just won. He's just all you can do is win these games, and whatever Hearts do, whatever the other team do, that's up to them. But he's done everything he needs to do, and if we win on Sunday, we go ahead. Now, before we get to Sunday and before we get to Hearts, Celtic obviously released a statement where they've banned the Green Brigade until they're satisfied with their They've banned the Green Brigade until they're satisfied that they're not banned. They're not going to be banned. But we spoke to our good friend Martin from the Green Brigade about the statement and some other stuff for Sunday, and here it is. We are joined now by our very good friend Martin from the Green Brigade. Hello Martin, how are you, sir?
Hi Chris, I'm good mate. Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. And this is something that we've said. The Green Brigade don't always get that right to reply, except via podcasts and as part of the Celtic Collective. They're not just the Celtic Collective, but they're part of it. So it's good to give that kind of right to reply, because the club released a statement during the week. I'll just read some of the statement out, and we can kind of talk through it. It was an update for the supporters. The club wishes to advise Celtic supporters that the suspension of the Green Brigade has been extended. This is due to safety incidents involving the Green Brigade, including direct threats against the club's head of security, impacting safety within the rail section. The suspension will remain in place until the club is satisfied the Green Brigade will engage in the safe operation of the stadium, which is critical. So the close of the first 6 rows of the section of the rail standing at Celtic Park, and suspend the Green Brigade season tickets and access to tickets at Celtic Park and away matches. It's quite an interesting statement. How was it received?
So I think people, certainly within our circles, were probably not that surprised that they extended the ban. I think I said the last time I was on here that we fully expected this ban to be extended. That was the noises that were coming out. You could just sort of read between the lines. I've been in this position before. This felt different this time. This felt like a real sort of all-out attack based on next to absolutely nothing. Yeah. So it didn't bode very well. So the statement itself, in terms of the extended ban, was no great surprise to me, or like I said, I don't think anybody in our circles. They also didn't take out the payment for the Utrecht match, which is in January, and also there was no cup final tickets issued to us, which is obviously in mid-December. So the extension of the ban was of no surprise. The tone of the statement was probably again of no surprise, because it's of a similar tone to what we've seen over recent months. The bit that probably really took us by surprise was the sort of extension, which they're now accusing us of sort of threatening Mark Hargreaves, the head of security. So I think, well, I'm certainly, I was there. I was at the AGM. I think I referenced it actually in the last
reaction. Yep,
the lad podcast. I don't think any listener is wanting to hear us continue to throw shit at each other, so I won't do that. But I still also want to defend first myself, but also the group. The very suggestion that the conversation which took place was threatening or involved intimidation, I wholeheartedly reject. Yes, it was a heated conversation. Yes, we asked some pressing questions. Yes, emotions were high. This was 24 hours after one of our good mates, who has done zero wrong, had his door put in, and we believe that the club were aware of that. So, I think people can understand, I'm sure Mark will understand that, we've got sort of strong emotions attached to that. He was asked about, what he knew about that, about any potential conflicts of interest in terms of existing relationships with police. And we sort of said to Celtic fans won't accept their own supporters being sort of harassed and having their lives turned upside down. With Bernard Higgins and others were involved in that during the FAC days. Celtic fans won't go back to those days. We won't accept that. We won't allow that. And, we sort of articulated that to him. But, I completely reject it was done in an intimidating fashion. Thankfully, people have passed us while that conversation was taking place and got in touch to say that that no such thing sort of happened. So, listen, we'll reject that accusation the same way we reject the accusation that people were violent at that Falkirk match a month on. But for us, it's a continuation of the attempted smear on the Green Brigade. So again, as much as it was surprising to see it in the statement, it does sort of go along with the other stories that have come out of the stadium or out of the Celtic since sort of September time.
Yeah, the statement's on the website. I mean, I don't think there's any need to go right through it bit by bit, but there's a bit at the end that says the club remains open to engaging with the group when appropriate, but cannot accept recent conduct and particular threats to club staff. To be clear, the suspension is entirely unrelated to any protests or banners and is based on the safety issues and violent, threatening and intimidating behaviour outlined above. I mean, the language used is, right to the edge. It's really putting it out there. It's painting a picture of I think the Green Brigade in a light that I don't think is fully true.
Yeah, listen, the language is very aggressive. It's very front foot. It's very matter of fact. It's potentially unlawful, and it's something that we've sort of got a lawyer sort of looking at for us. But yeah, it's clearly problematic. It is good to see that they've at least said they're open to engaging, although they've said in time, which sounds like it will be on their terms. We've released countless emails online that have shown us asking for engagement and asking for meetings since the beginning of the season. Not only have they not taken us up on that, they just ignored the emails. So they've just repeatedly ignored that. We are still continuing through the SLO and through channels to say, look, we're happy. We're 100%, again, can't say enough, deny all allegations, but equally, we want to support the team. We want to be back in a sort of rightful place. We want to get back in an even keel, and we are absolutely open to engaging with them, whether that's just us and them, whether that's through mediators or whatever. That the ball is very much in their court. Just this afternoon's conversation with people willing to facilitate that. So we're open to it, ready to go in and speak to them and sit down and try and work it out. And then during that meeting, I'm happy to present the evidence that we have. If they want to see it, then great. If they don't, then fine. Either way, if they want to communicate and engage, then let's do it.
I think that's what everyone wants. I mean, I think
it's completely bizarre for it not to happen when the group's willing to do that. So there's an accusation level at the club generally that their fan engagement is, let's just say, poor. So when there's a group of supporters here who want to engage with them and want to talk to try and get things like saying an even keel, then it would seem really bizarre for that not to take place. But like I say, the ball's in their court. There's only so many times we can see it. It's up to them to really to enact on that now.
Absolutely. Justin, is there an expectation to get back in this season?
The honest answer is I don't know. We will still. I mean, we've showed last night we can still get to games. We obviously, for people who don't know, we were at the game last night alongside boys. Again, there was a real desire to get to that game because a lot of people who are in the Green Brigade sort of grew up with Martin O'Neill. He's a legend in a lot of people's eyes. We wanted to get to that game and support the team and do all that sort of stuff. Again, Sunday's a big game. There's no decision made on that, but we could get tickets for that. It's no ideal having to beg, steal and borrow tickets for everywhere. We would rather just use the existing season tickets that we've paid for and be in our seats, but that's not permitted at the moment. So we will still be at games, whether it's men's teams games, women's teams games, B team games. We'll still be about, we'll still be active. In terms of whether the season tickets are reinstated before the end of the season, I really don't know. Hopefully, but I think I've said it a few times. Things feel different. This feels like they are out to really end the Green Brigade here because, like I said, they've went off absolutely nothing and banned the full section. So we don't know. We really don't know.
Yeah, well, it's if the club had anything about them, they would get in contact and try and resolve it. My fear is that, as you say, Martin, that they're not interested in that. But
listen, if the people who are intent on breaking us up, and that's what we keep hearing. I keep hearing it through other sources. We keep hearing it even through media. People know that they're intent to break up. They're seriously undermining the members of the Green Brigade and how sort of devoted they are. Firstly to Celtic and following Celtic. They're devoted to the club, the values, the culture. They're devoted to this way of supporting and without what it sounds so cheesy, they're devoted to each other, devoted to the group. They won't just because they're banned, they're not just going to disappear.
Yeah.
The Green Brigade will still be around a long time after Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, Mark Cargreaves or whoever. They'll still be there. They might prevent them accessing every game this season. They might do that, and even they might prevent them renewing their season ticket next season. But the Green Brigade will still exist, and they'll still be going to see Celtic in some form, regardless of how hard they try. So it does make sense to accept that and sit around a table and try and work out a way of making that happen for the betterment of everybody.
Absolutely, and the colour and the joy and the songs and the atmosphere, I think the Green Brigade are needed. That's my personal opinion and view. You've got a food drive coming up. Obviously, this is a really tough time of year for everyone. That's going to be part of the walk from St Mary's. So let's talk about the walk from St Mary's first on Sunday.
Yeah, so that came up at the meeting between the collective last month, a few weeks ago. Really great idea and really, really appropriate given the comments from the AGM, particularly from Ross Desmond.
Yeah.
So it ticks the box in terms of where it's come from, St Mary's, the origins of the club and all that sort of stuff. I don't need to tell anybody about that. It is more of a sort of celebration of all things Celtic and a reminder of the values and the history of the club. So we're hoping for a really big turnout in that, and I'd really encourage everybody who can attend to do that. It'll be just a peaceful walk from the church to the stadium, and towards the end of the route we'll pass a food bank collection. That food bank collection will take place anyway, but it is sort of adds a even different dimension to the day and to the march and stuff. So really encourage anybody who is going and can make the march to also bring a bag of messages if they possibly can.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing, and we'll certainly be there, the Cynic. So that's from St Mary's, passing at the food bank. That's where you deposit your stuff, but that'll be made clear on the day.
So there'll be various, for anybody who can't make the march, there'll be various collection points. There'll be one at the Celtic Way down the bottom, towards just at the Bill McNeill statue actually. There'll be one at the Gallowgate entrance, and there'll be one behind the Lisbon Lion stand. So we'll take foods, toiletries. There'll be buckets for anybody who's got change, whatever, to throw in as well. So yeah, please do. I can't underestimate the difference this makes. These collections have literally kept food banks open. I mean, literally, like they would have closed without it. So
yeah.
I don't think there's any other collection of its kind in Scotland which is as big as this. So the importance of your donations are incredible. When we first started doing it, the food banks were operating sort of month to month, but things are that desperate now that they're operating week to week. So the need is greater than ever. The guys themselves are giving up their Sunday to go and volunteer to get their food and stuff like that. And we obviously will not go to the game as well, so we're asking our members to get along to the stadium to do it. So please, I'm sure everybody will, please do make it worthwhile. It is very much appreciated, and it's such a critical time for people. So yeah, please do help. Absolutely,
couldn't agree more. Fantastic work. Just kind of final word on the Celtic Collective. The Celtic Collective, I think we're always trying to make that point that it's not just the Green Brigade. I think people sometimes get confused about that. But it's not just the Green Brigade. It's so many signatories on the original letter that was put out. We're going from strength to strength. We're trying to make things really work. And your kind of final thoughts on that for today?
Yeah, been like I say, something I've been really passionate about. I think it's been really badly missing from sort of Celtic supporting world. I've been really, really delighted by the reaction, say from a few Twitter comments and stuff like that. The reaction of the support and how it's been welcomed has been great. It's still building momentum, and I think we've built something that will stand the test of time. So we'll have another meeting, I'd imagine, probably in the new year, and we'll start to look to build something that's more. Because right now we just sort of threw together a sort of steering committee, but to make it sustainable, it needs to be sort of democratic and stuff like that. So we'll look to put proper structures in place, democratic representative structures in place, probably hopefully around sort of springtime anyway. And then, like I say, hopefully last the test of time. But yeah, listen, it can be great in terms of channeling people's feelings around the board now, but if and when we get a resolution to that, the Celtic Collective has got to stay intact. It's got to challenge things on, the stadium, fan issues, ticket pricing, distribution. There's so much going on in the Celtic world week to week, and a united fan body that can hold not only our board to account, but other authorities to account will be such an asset to the support. So long may it continue, and please continue to give it support.
Absolutely. Crucial. Very crucial in the world and lives of the Celtic support. Great stuff. Martin, a joy as always. We'll speak to you again soon, sir.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Just one other thing before we go. Thank you to you guys for giving us a platform, the other fan media as well who have been supportive of us. There's certain fan media outlets as well who've backed us.
Yeah.
The boys especially last night and beyond have been outstanding. So big thanks to everybody. Your support is immeasurable, really. So really appreciate it.
Great stuff. Solidarity with the Celtic Collective. Martin, a pleasure. We'll speak to you again soon.
Cheers, my man. Thank you.
Great stuff from Martin, and obviously the Green Brigade food drive, an important part of what they do, and the walk from St Mary's to really hammer home that we are the Celtic support, we are Celtic Football Club, and they can't take it away from us. So we're going to finish looking at the game against Hearts. This is a hard game to kind of look at and to kind of preview in a way, just in regard to we don't know what Nancy's going to do, how he's going to set up, we don't know what his thoughts are going to be. But within that, Graeme, how are you feeling about it? Are you more confident going into this game now than you would have been a couple of weeks ago? Is there anything to take from Martin O'Neill's results that can be brought into this game? Essentially, will he go full Nancy?
I've got a feeling he will go full Nancy, given that he's got I'm assuming 2 full days of training to work through. I'm assuming he's going to try and get his ideas across as quickly as possible, because at the end of the day, like, I think this last month has given him much more leeway than he would have had if he'd instantly replaced Brendan Rodgers and was 8 points behind Hearts and was then going to try and implement full Nancy, then I think that's a little bit of a trickier situation. For me, and this has been my opinion for the last few weeks, the title race was not the 8 points behind Hearts that we were. The title race was the 5 points behind ahead Rangers that we were, and that was a title race. That title race is now 9 points. We have a buffer, and people will say, "Oh, but we're joint with Hearts." That's not the title race, as far as I'm concerned. I want Nancy to come in here and just try and get his ideas across as quickly as possible, because we will benefit from that in the long run. As for being nervous about this game, I'm not nervous about playing Hearts at home. Like, this might come back to bite me in the arse on Sunday night, but if you're nervous about playing Celtic playing Hearts at home, then you're in the wrong sport as far as I'm concerned. Going to Tynecastle, on the other hand, that's a different thing, but we should be pumping them at home.
Absolutely. What's your kind of thoughts on it, Scott? What are your confidence levels?
Yeah, I'm fairly confident, as I touched on a minute ago, just due to Hearts' form. I think you always need to look at them less as these sort of Tony Bloom geniuses and title contenders and stuff, and just look at them as a team who, in terms of the form table at the moment, are probably decidedly mid-table. I don't want to write them off too much, because there is obviously a lot of questions to be answered on our side and not a lot of squad depth, as we saw in the second half against Dundee the other night. But yeah, I still do feel quite confident. I totally agree with Graeme, but I think we do need to go full Nancy from the start, really, because if you're postponing that point where you do that work in the training ground and fully sort of introduce your full methodology, that when are you postponing it to? Because we're not going to have a load of time in the training ground anytime soon. We've got a really busy fixture schedule all the way through December. So I think you are just going to have to do it almost in small batches. But I think if that's what you believe is the best way forward, then you've just got to do it from the start. Again, not to overcook the Ange comparisons, but that's what we saw with him. It was quite uncompromising. It was very visibly his signature way of playing from the start. And I think the best way for Nancy to put his best foot forward is to do that as well. So I'm looking forward to it. We spoke about how it's not ideal, but as I touched on earlier on, I think he'll be looking at it as a big opportunity, and I think we as fans need to look on it as a big opportunity as well, because if we do win, then we'd only be 3 points ahead, but psychologically it would really feel like a big step towards another title. And it would allow us to go into the Roma game with a lot of positivity as well, which I know we're not too far off the top of Serie A at the moment, but they have lost quite a few games already this season. I think they've lost at home to the likes of Victoria Pilsen and Lille. So I'm really not looking at them as this invincible, unbeatable team. I think if we get it right and if the atmosphere is good enough on the night and stuff, which, obviously the Green Brigade issue doesn't help with, then I think we've got a chance of getting a result there as well, and then you're really going into the cup final on a high as well. So that's the ideal scenario. We'll have to wait and see how it actually unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow we've got a podcast called The Lunch Club, and we'll be looking at Hearts from a stats and tactics point of view with our good friend Will. So we'll get a little bit more into how they're performing. But from a Celtic point of view, it's kind of a who knows. We'll wait and see. I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about the whole thing. I feel a little bit more invigorated with Celtic on the park. Celtic off the park is fucking killing me because this board are parasites who need to be shown that, we will not bow to their pish, frankly. Not a penny more. Not another penny. Don't buy any. Don't buy any of the merchandise, and take a snack. Take a snack with you into Celtic Park. Take a meal deal. You know what I mean? You don't need any of that pish anyway. It's all bad for you.
But that's what people need to be allowed to do, don't they? People need to be allowed to compartmentalise over the next few months. Like, you can totally engage with the non-C thing and buy into all that hype and enjoy it. And that doesn't mean you're being a hypocrite in any way, because if you still absolutely hate this board and you're desperate to see the back of them, which I think we all are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. To divorcing yourself from it all is difficult, but we implore you to do it. Graeme, sorry.
I was just thinking about the ways in which the club will try and offer some nice things to Celtic support to kind of win us over before Christmas. And I would love, and I'm not going to buy anything from the shop if they do this, but I want them to do it anyway. I want a Wilfried Nancy mic'd up training session. I want his version of Yes Barker. So what would that be? We maybe Sinicella?
No, that's it. We're cutting that.
We Cine?
No. Not for me. Listen, it's been an absolute joy. We've got lots coming up for you on the Cynic. As I say, tomorrow we get the Lunch Club where we'll look at Hearts from a little bit more of a stats and tactics point of view, and we'll have some fun on that podcast. And then we'll have a reaction to the Hearts game. We're going to the walk from St Mary's beforehand, and we'll cover that as well. So lots coming up. Podcasts every single day. Check out thecynic.co or search for The Cynic on Patreon. It's paradise in your pocket, I'm led to believe. Listen, Scott Fleming, a joy as always, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Nice one.
Great stuff. Graeme Mackay, pleasure, sir.
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed coming beyond the paywall, only to be sent back again for another 6 months.
Absolutely. We don't like putting you out front and centre because you're too good, in a way. From Scott Fleming, from Graeme Mackay, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly. Jesus. I'll do that again. 3, 2, 1. From Scott Fleming, from Graeme Mackay, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly, and we'll speak to you down the road.